Hey, it's Michael. Welcome to week 4, our second online meeting for the space planning class. So, do you like the view of New York? That's my screen background. I have an iMac, so it's a really, really big monitor. This is not going to be an extraordinarily long amount of time spent online this week. That's because I really want to show you some basics of the work that you're going to be doing in week 4, and then use the remainder of the time. Theoretically, we have 3 hours of class and 3 hours of homework, so the remainder of that 6 hour block for you to actually practice what we're doing. It's really important. I can give new information only at a certain speed, and after a while, simply being exposed to it doesn't mean that you know how to use it. So it's important, I believe, that you have a series of these exercises to go through to help understand what's being done. So, from week 3, assignment 3, this is the space planning sheet for a tiny advertising agency supposedly being created on the fourth floor of the former Hotel Alexandra on Washington Street in Boston's South End. The building, as it exists, was built in the 1870s. It's been empty for about 40 some odd years, and people are actually fairly desperate to find a way to make the building useful. So, here you have the number of people that we have in here. We don't need, I think, the storyboard portion of this, which is down in here, because what we're going to do with this information is to create from your bubble diagram and this sheet block diagrams of how things might be laid out on the floor. So we know, just as a recap from what I'd said before, that we have levels of people and things. This tells you how many people and things there are. Unit area. There's one principal at 150 square feet. That means I need a total of 150 square feet for that person. Creative director, there are 3 of them at 150 square feet. That means I need 450 square feet for the group of them. So, according to the information I calculated from the model, the entire third floor, and in our case, fourth floor, is about 5,630 square feet. That's exclusive of the fire stairs back here, over here, and the elevator core. So that's just the space in which we can put office space. We know we have total square footages for the things. What we're missing is something that I brought up in the last class, the circulation factor. Since we have not planned ahead of time, we can't know what size corridors or what length of corridors we absolutely have to connect departments and people together. We also don't know if we want to have perhaps a larger space for a gathering or an impromptu meeting that we hadn't really planned in before as a specific item. So we need to have that additional space, as I pointed out in the class. Circulation can vary a lot. The total we normally think of is something between 30 and 40% factor additional added to the real space we need. So when we total up all of the things we have on that previous page, it will total 3,895 square feet. Circulation at 40% adds about another 1,560. That is calculated like this. Here we have the principal at 150 square feet. I am adding a 40% circulation factor. That means I'm adding in another 40% of that number, or 60 square feet, for corridor space that I have not yet planned. Therefore, when I draw the block that is going to represent the principal, that block has to be 210 square feet in order to include both the space for the office and the access space to reach the office. creative directors take 150 square feet each, but there are 3 of them. That's 450 square feet. If I add a 40% factor to 450 square feet, I have 180 square feet that would be just circulation. If I add the two together, when I draw a block, which is the creative directors, I'm going to have a total in that block of 630 square feet so that I know I have enough room for the creative directors and the circulation space. And one more time, if I have the account managers, total as one big group is 720 square feet. Circulation at 40% is 288 square feet. So if I draw these as one big block, the total I'm going to need is 1,008 square feet. So this is going to add up to the circulation factor, which was on page 2 of 1,560 square feet. Your blocks, when you create your blocks, they are going to be these sizes. They're going to be the total square footage plus the circulation. If it turns out, for whatever reason, that you want to break staff up into smaller groups, if you break these into 2 groups of 3 or 3 groups of 2, you need to multiply that out. If I have 3 groups of 2, then I have each group of 2 is 240 square feet, and I have to put a circulation factor on that. Break it up however you want, but make sure you have the 40% circulation factor added in. Once you've listed each of the areas and listed all of the areas, including circulation space, you're ready to begin blocking. I would suggest strongly that you do that on a separate sheet of paper so that all you see is principal number of spaces and the total amount of space you need with the circulation factor added in. Otherwise, you'll only confuse yourself at some point and look at the total square footage and make blocks that are a size that doesn't work for you. Now, this is our project in AutoCAD. So this is the full floor. This happens to be the 4th floor. I think the original programming says we're using the 3rd floor. 3rd and 4th are identical, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Over here, I've got obviously normal layers already made. What I have done, though, I've added in a couple of additional areas. This is for the conference spaces. I've made it red. For reception, I've made it sort of teal tone. And I think that's cyan, I'm sorry. And the restrooms are green. So I'm doing them in separate colors because we're going to color in the blocks so as to make the drawing read a bit more easily. And this is how you do coloring in AutoCAD. One thing I would like to show you, I'm going to create a new layer. By the way, I know if you are used to AutoCAD at all, this screen probably looks odd to you. It is AutoCAD 2018, but it's the Mac version. So everything you find across the top in buttons, I have down the right-hand side here and down the left over here. So I'm going to make one new layer and probably call it Office Space. By convention, not that you have to do this, but by convention, all of the text you type in AutoCAD is always in uppercase letters. So if I accept that Office, now in order to change the color of it, go to the square, hold it down. You can see that there are a series of colors. There are 7 in all that are standard AutoCAD colors. But you're not limited to just 7 colors. Just in case you feel artistic, go to the very bottom here and select color. These are the colors that are standard to AutoCAD. You can select absolutely any one of them. If you want to, I'm actually not sure how this works exactly in a Windows machine, but if I go to True Color, I can use this So my apologies for a little jump in the recording there. What I was going to say was that you can go here on the color palette to what's called True Color. From here, you can pick just about anything you could possibly imagine in a color and select its intensity and make that the color that you're going to use for the project. So why would you do that? Well, in part, you may want to do it if you have used color in your bubble diagram and you'd like the color in your block diagram to match what's in your bubble diagram. It's a nice thing to do in that it helps people understand more quickly, especially if you're doing a fairly complicated drawing, what you're talking about. A truly minor point to consider is the idea, though, that anything you pick in the true color palette does not have any effect on the weights of the lines that you make with that color. Where, as I think I've mentioned before, but AutoCAD index colors, all of these colors have numbers. You can see down below there's an color number for it, and those numbers refer to the control of the width of the lines in the AutoCAD drawing. So if you want to control line width, you need to pick something from one of these colors. Not that that's exactly a limiting palette. There are quite a few choices there. So you pick a color that is appropriate, whether you do it through True Color or through the index color numbers. Click OK, and the color becomes the color for the layer. So we're ready at this point to begin looking at areas, block spaces, and how to make them. I've made the layer for reception the current layer because I'm going to start by creating a layer for the reception space. So we have a couple of options to create blocks. The easiest thing, of course, is under your Draw menu. I have it here under Draw. There are presets that can create shapes for you. I'm using this one, which is your basic simple rectangle. Like that. I have a rectangle. Now, that works perfectly fine. All I need to find out from it is, well, how big is it? If I click on it and I type the word list, I can just type LI, that's the abbreviation for it, LIST if you want to. And down here, there's a little pop-up command window. And right down there, it's telling me that this particular one is 394.707 square feet. Important to note right here, do not worry about tiny, tiny decimal fractions. I would use this space as appropriate for anything from, say, 390 to 410 square feet. It really doesn't have to be that careful. You'll also notice this pop-up window does not disappear by itself. It's simply sitting there. In order to make it go away and to drop back down into the command line, across the top of your keyboard above the regular numbers are what are called function keys. If you press F2, this pops back down and disappears. So you have the list function to decide how big this square is. You also have another function, and that is a perfectly simple one called area. A-R-E-A. It's what you're looking for is the area. So in order for area to work properly, go down here into the lower right corner and you'll see this little box with a little red dot in the corner. That's called the ortho mode. As I hover over it, it's probably going to pop up and say that on its own. Ortho object snap. I'm sorry. Object snap. It forces the cursor to move to a particular point on a line, a midpoint, a perpendicular point, in this case the ends of lines. So if I click it and make it active, it changes colors. So for area, it's asking me to pick the area, outline the area I want to see. You can see what's happening. As I move anywhere on the line, it's automatically trying to pop to the corner. That's what I want. I'm trying to measure in the corners. So I click on 1, 2, and now you can begin to see the shape. It's saying this is the area I'm taking. I get the total area this way. Basically, just by down here, you can see that the default, if I press enter, is to give me the total. And I can get the total area for that space. Now, the only concern here, well, I've got a couple of concerns, but first concern about it is that the shapes I need may not necessarily be a rectangle, especially where I'm working with a slightly odd-shaped building. So there is another thing I can do. It's actually the basic command that was behind this that created it. It's called a p-line, p-poly. So it's polyline. It's more than one line make up a gigantic whole. If I type PL or type PLINE, I can continue to make pieces. When I hit next to the end, I hit C for close, and it shuts it. Notice that right now I had the ortho control on. Ortho forces you to go side to side or up and down. You can't draw an angled line. This became angled because it's going to find the shortest path between the two endpoints when you press close, so that's what it's going to do. So once again, as is true here, when you have a P-line, it's all one big piece. You can see how it's flashing. If I highlight it, it's all one object. Just like it was true with the rectangle, if I type LI for list down below here, I find out that that peculiar shape is 198.798 square feet. What an interesting number. I hit F2, as I've mentioned earlier, the F2 across the top of the keyboard to make that box pop away. So we can do shapes this way. We can also, down here, this is again the ortho command. This is what's controlling the direction that the cursor can travel. If I type P-line now and hit enter, I can do something that varies in shape that maybe I want to do this to fit a peculiar shape, and I'm simply matching a peculiar shape that's already in the room I'm working on. Makes no difference. The system doesn't care. It's one large object. Now, the problem with any of these objects is that they aren't necessarily the right number of square feet. We're trying for specific size. If we look back at the totals here, I'm working on the reception area. The reception area is 200 square feet, but as I pointed out earlier, we're adding a 40% circulation factor. 40% of 200 is 80, so that means my block needs to be 280 square feet. How do I make that 280 square feet? Well, one thing you can do, if I click on any of these, you notice the little squares in every angle. Those are called grips. If I click a grip, it turns red. I can now move it. I'm stretching the piece. I can completely change its shape. Right now I have the ortho mode, sorry about that pop-up, the ortho mode off. So it's allowing me to stretch the line wherever I want to. Once I've stretched its shape, I can go back and type, list again, and find out that I've now reduced it to 269.143 square feet, which could go for 280, but it might not. I might want to be a little bit more accurate. In fact, I will be a little bit more accurate with it. So first we press F2 to get rid of the dialog box at the bottom. Now, to make a space that is a particular size to start with and know that we're accurate, I'm going to erase these. We don't actually need them. I am going to turn on the ortho mode down here. This is the command that keeps the cursor moving only up and down and right and left. So I want to create a space that is 280 square feet. That's 200 square feet for the reception area plus 80 square feet for the circulation. So truly, I'm just guessing at a number. I went back to the calculator and divided it out. 280 square feet, if I divide it by 20, it's 14. So if I make a rectangle that's 20 feet by 14 feet, it will be 280 square feet. How do I do that? I want to make some straight lines. So you can either come up here and click to make a straight line, or you can type L and hit enter. I'm going to make a line this way and that way, and then I'm going to press enter. I could also have hit escape to close the command. Now I'm going to use the offset command. That's O, enter. I want to offset both of these lines. I'm going to be offsetting them by a specific distance, and that's what it's asking me for right now. Through how much distance? I want to offset it by 20 feet. Note that, as may have been mentioned earlier in AutoCAD videos, AutoCAD is thinking in inches. So if I just enter 20, it's going to offset 20 inches. I need to use the little caret symbol, which is right to the left of the return key. The little caret tells it I want 20 feet. Hit enter, and that's what I want to do. So that's 20 feet. I want to repeat the process. I want to do O for offset, but now I need to change the dimension because it's going to be 14 feet. I need the little caret symbol, or I'm going to get 14 inches. Hit return. Pick the line. There. Now I have 14 feet. Now, this is all well and good. The only problem with it is that this is not a workable shape. I can't move this over here. This is not a polyline. It's all separate pieces. So I need to make a polyline out of it. Since it's a rectangle anyway, I can click over here for a rectangle. Remembering that I need to have the O-snap command on. That needs to be highlighted. I now go, it's going for the end of the line, and the end of the line, because I'm pulling it rectangle in a diagonal. Click. I have now made a rectangle using that as a base. I'm going to use the move command, M, enter, move. Because I want to show you that the other option, of course, is to type PL for P-line. If I do PL for P-line, I then have to go all the way around the outside. I have to pick the four corners. It takes a little more care because you can't really see what you're doing. The two lines are the same color. But I did create, use the move command again, another rectangle. And both rectangles are, I can do this, yes. If I type LI for list, both rectangles are 280 square feet, which is what I needed it to be. F2 to make that block disappear. So what I don't need now are these little individual lines that I used to set the whole thing up. I can simply hit E and erase them. I want to turn off snap. I want to turn off the ortho mode because I'm going to place things. I'm going to move this. Right now, I'm going to move it right here. This, to my mind right now, makes perfect sense because reception is right off the elevator. To make this fit a little better, if I zoom in, notice it isn't placed particularly well. I can turn back on the snap indicator down here. Type M for move. Take this corner, which is my reception area, and put it here, which is the corner of the elevator area. I'm going to turn the snap off again just so I know it's off. So now I have a reception area located in what is probably a pretty reasonable space. just so I don't forget what the space is when I begin to have more blocks located there, it would be reasonable to label it. I'm going to keep the reception layer current. That way, if for any reason I shut reception off, both the text and the box will disappear at the same time. So for you, under the Draw menu, there is Draw Multi-Line Text. I have a touch button over here instead, which is showing me text. Make a little box for the text. And this is set at 9 inches high. 9 inches high. The drawing is set at a 1/8 inch scale right now. So a 9-inch high lettering is probably reasonable for what we're doing. As I said, we normally do all of the information in all caps. So it's RECEPTION, and it's 280 square feet. If you want to, if you're kind of into that kind of thing, go back into this. You can highlight it, and this button up here will neatly center your text. This slider shows how much space is available for the text. I don't know why, I just like it to fit fairly comfortably. When I'm done, I click up here for save. There we are. So it says reception for me in that location. I'm going to just, again, it's just me. You don't have to do this, but I'm moving it so it looks nice because it's in the center. That's just what I do. Would you zoom back out here and get rid of that little block that I don't need? Now, what I am going to do is make several other blocks that don't have any real purpose, just to point out what blocks look like on the floor. Sorry, just going to... I knew I could do that. Okay, so I'm going to make several other blocks. Let's start with offices. I want to begin by making the office layer current so that I know that's the color layer I'm going to draw on. I haven't done anything about planning out a space. I'm simply guessing at where I'd like things to be. Again, this is a demonstration about how to make a block. It's not really how to do the layout in the space. I do want the snap command on down here so that I know things are going to connect firmly to one another, because I am going to use the rectangle tool. Now, if I were going to do an office, what I would have done is gone back and looked at the size for an office space, added 40% to it, and made a block that is actually that size. So I'm cheating a bit by simply drawing something and saying, ha, it's an office. So that's a kind of a difficult color to see. I'm going to label it office. How about that? Oops, sorry, somehow or other I got out of caps. There we go. We might as well do things properly. Can that even be visible? Well, it is visible. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I have a series of offices. Let's say I'm going to put, and this is not according to your program, I'm just going to put 4 offices in here, all the same size. Okay, what I want to do is do a crossing window from the lower right to the upper left. The dotted line says all I have to do is barely touch something and it picks it up. I wanted to get the text and the block. Now I'm going to do a copy function, CP, copy. I'm going to start with this upper corner. You can see that it's clicking right for that corner. Move it down and click to the opposite corner. Click down to the opposite corner. Click down to the opposite corner and hit either escape or enter to end the command. So what I now have is 4 offices hidden up in the corner there. Maybe I have a workspace. Did I call it something conference space? That's a good one. Let's start with conference space. Maybe I want a conference area, since there are no windows here, and I want the conferences to be somewhere near reception, because people are going to, sorry about that, people are going to want to go to a conference room from a reception space. I'm going to make a rectangle that does that. Now, what I want to do here, I'm typing the letters N-E-A, near. I want something that is near that line. That way I know it's right on top of it. I'm going to put text inside that. So I'm going to take, again, you want draw multi-line text. And I'm going to mark in here that I have 3 conference rooms and save it. Bit by bit, I am slowly getting spaces that are going to, I'm sorry, fill the area. Notice what I'm doing right now? I'm eyeballing it. I admit that's what I did. I just eyeballed it. I don't know what this space might be, but I'm going to call that a rectangle as well. And I'm going to say that it fills up this space because when I do a block diagram, there are no open spaces. Remember, there are no circulation spaces shown. It's just the blocks running together. So in here, for each of these, if the snap, right now, the snap is making things annoying because it's trying to put things in the corner. I'm going to shut that off. Now I can put the text anywhere I want to. And it is something. Again, I just like to put things neatly around. So I'm using M for move. And I'm putting it in the center here. That is on the conference layer, which probably was a mistake. So I guess I can call it more conference rooms. And I will. And there I go. Oops, did it on the wrong layer. I could show you how to change layers. I'm not going to actually. It's time consuming and unnecessary. Here we go. There we go. More conference space. And again, move it to the middle. Now, when you have all of these in place and you have filled the entire floor, you might want to add color. So we need to make the layer current for whatever space we're doing. I think we'll start with reception since we did reception before. So to begin, we first have to go over here and make sure right now something called existing railing is the current layer. We need to have reception as the current layer because we want the color inside the block to match our color for reception. What we're looking for under the draw pull down is hatch. You can also just type the word hatch and this little menu will pop up. So the menu is offering us as a preset this, which if I hover over it for a moment, will tell you it's called ANSI 31. That's a particular standard hatch pattern. If you hold this little tiny arrow down and go for hatches, you will find that there are lots and 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 lots of choices. It really doesn't matter what you use. You could, if you wanted to play around, there's one that looks like little fish. You could do that if you'd like to. Any hatch you'd like to fill in here. This is scale. It's how far apart, relatively speaking, the elements of the hatch are going to be placed. So right now I'm going to leave that at 1. I want to select boundary. The boundary I'm picking is over here. It's filling in the whole thing. Well, now there are a couple of problems there. One is that it's absolutely solid. I don't really want it to be absolutely solid. The other is that it has obscured the word that's underneath it. So if I click here and hit delete, I'm now back to where I was. I removed that. So those lines were too close together, which is why it looked like a solid. If I come back here, I want to get them farther apart. I'm going to change this to 15. 15 is a nice number, as good as any. Pick points, not select boundary, because pick points will pick everything inside this boundary. Now, we have color that is not too excessively bright, and it's gone around because there is a boundary around the letters. So now we have something that's a perfectly reasonable idea of what the color can be.